right, and welcome to another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business with Jason Dukes. That's me. Today, super happy to have Scott Woodruff on the show as a guest. Again, we're going to bring you all the people behind the scenes of motorsports and even in front of the scenes in motorsports and teach you a lot about the business of motorsports. Now, I've known of Woody for a long time because of some of the, not some of the different roles, but because of one of the major roles that he had. But let me tell you a little bit about Woody, and I'll tell it to you in the form of a testimonial that someone wrote on LinkedIn. And note, this LinkedIn testimonial is from 2011 to put some of this stuff into perspective. So a little bit of a time capsule. We're filming right now in August of 2023. This was a testimonial from 2011 of Scott Woodruff. He has produced TV shows, live press events, parties in Vegas, live web events for car reveals, put cars in parades, develop a team website and a mobile site, the first electronic press kit on CD. Remember, this is 2011, right? Jegs messages on Times Square, historic documentaries of the Jegs family, bobsled, race posters, every variety of print media, literature, clothing design, helmets, famous yellow hats, which if you are a Jegs person, you know about the yellow hats, and actually just yellow at all, just, total yellow domination. Custom trophies, sponsorship, car decals. Once you wrapped a car in cartoons, and again, probably something that's, typical in 2023, but we're talking 2011. And he gets impossible tickets for fans and friends and turned TV into a toolbox. So, like I said, when I read this and just remembered that it was 2011, it was like, man, this guy is Superman. A little bit later in the show, I'll talk about how our paths crossed in a couple different ways. But I would like to bring on Scott Woodruff as the guest this week on Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, like I said, I mean, what do you think about when you heard that intro that you got there?
I was smiling because it was like, yeah, that's fun. I don't know. I'm more of a behind the scenes guy. But yeah, I've been fortunate to do a lot of really cool things, and my time at Jegs, those guys always gave me the resources to do the job and do the job right. They understood very clearly that relationships are really what make the world go round. So that was really, I never really had a so-called budget, kind of just managed stuff as though it was my own and asked when I needed to ask. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Every day is different. And I wouldn't change it for anything.
All right, so we'll get to that. So Scott was the director of media and motorsports at Jegs, and I don't even know if that position even had a title. Like you could just throw like any name in there, and that's what you did. And also the same at Elite Motorsports, director of branding and motorsports, which is also like a family. Actually, I want to call it a family-run business, but it's more just like a family, and same thing there. Like I don't necessarily know if the title works for tells anything, but want to start at the finish for the people watching, just so that the people that, I don't know who doesn't know you, but for the people who don't know you and know the titles that you have. But for the sake of the way that the Drag Illustrated racing business goes, let's start with Scott or Woody as a kid, or like I don't even know if it was Scott or Woody as a kid. Like, when did Woody come along? But just tell us about your childhood and how racing became a part of your life.
Well, racing probably really became a part of my life with my father. So my father passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease, about 23 years ago after a long battle. But when I was growing up, we'd go out to Columbus Motor Speedway, and I remember the Chicken Man is what I called him, just because he had a rubber chicken on the back of his car. And you heard that over the PA, and then, went to Mid-Ohio a lot as a kid, watching Can-Am cars and, going to the infield at Mid-Ohio as a kid was really cool because, you had a big blanket, a big cooler, a little grill, and and you got to just walk around and check out cars. That, as that facility lends itself to just the natural landscape of it. You get tired of watching one spot, go pick 17 others.
Right.
They're everywhere. But I just I met, I've always been involved with racing. Probably most people don't know this, but my real true love of motorsports is IndyCar racing. Is by far my favorite. I like drag racing, don't get me wrong, but the kid inside of me still likes open wheel racing, loves go-karting. I'm the guy that'll get up early Sunday morning if I'm at home and
watch Formula
watch
One.
F1 before getting ready for church. So
yeah.
But I just I just always like motorsports. I think it's once I as I got older, you went to events and looked at different things, and I'll take IndyCar for example. I mean, for whatever reason, I've always had my eye on things that appeal to me, that are sharp, that look nice. Maybe this comes from my childhood and every Saturday having to yank everything out of the garage and clean the floor and clean the grill and clean the cars and mow the grass and do everything before you could do anything on the weekend. But Penske, Team Penske's always just
perfect.
Man, it just, you strive for that, really. I mean, less is more. Visually, they've done in motorsports, in my opinion, that's the pinnacle of branding, without a doubt. In drag racing, you hear Kenny Bernstein, Snake, these guys, as far as their presentation. But to me, there's no better organization than Team Penske.
Yeah, the less is more it always got me, especially, my first IndyCar race was the Meadowlands Grand Prix back in New Jersey in like the 90s, I guess. But same, like going and seeing all the bright lights and all the things, and then you get to the Penske Hall and it's just chrome, and you're like,
oh, it's bad. It's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, I don't know that I got it because I wanted to see like the fancy colors and all that stuff, and then I just got there and it was just like chrome and everything was polished and everyone was perfect. And as I grew up and became an adult, like I got it, but as a kid, I was like, man, like. I wanted to see like fancy colors and all that stuff, but I got it.
Yeah, and then I like for me, like I also grew up in Dublin, Ohio. Growing up from about '84 on till just after college. But my parents lived on I grew up on the 12th hole at Muirfield Village golf course. Really awesome golf course, but to be able to watch that. Specifically the tournament that Jack Nicklaus puts on there through the years, it's just like Penske. Less is more. You paint the scaffolding the really dark green so it blends in and you don't notice it. And there's just attention to detail means everything. And if I really look at Jack Nicklaus and Roger Penske as kind of like the two that I wouldn't say try to model or mold or make decisions upon, but that that's more than one time I've had pop in my mind, what would Roger do? What would Jack do? So
that's a good way to go about it for sure. So,
and both of those guys, to be honest, are they're very, very particular about who they associate their brand with. And that's, I've always looked at, to me, everybody's their own brand. And first it has to start off with your word. And, you're only as good as your word. So when you say something, do something, you want to exceed somebody's expectations all the time. And that's, I always remember the late Jeff Bird saying that a lot. And to the point that it's on the walls there at Bristol, and he's gone, from this earth. But his powerful words, they still have some thunder in them, even though he's not with us around those two hallowed grounds for sure.
Yeah, great guy. Definitely rest in peace there. So was your dad in the business of motorsports or just a motorsports enthusiast?
My dad was a fan of motorsports. As we grew up, I became friends with the Truman family growing up. And this is probably 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, really because my dad had private planes and our planes were in the same hangar with Red Finn's stuff. So, naturally saw, Jim Truman a lot, Megan, Michelle, and Colin. So,
well, and just
that was always like cool because, like, to me, like in the the mid '80s, growing up in Columbus, Ohio, I mean, you were a Bobby Rahal fan, period.
Right.
So I laugh at some of the stuff that they did as an organization. When you came into Hilliard, Ohio, it says home of 1986 IndyCar winner Bobby Rahal.
Right.
And I always thought, man, that's really badass. Like, we got to get it. We got to get a sign coming into Delaware for Jegs. Like that always was in the back of my mind. Down the road, like when I started working at Jegs and we were doing well, I kind of went back and remembered, oh man, remember that sign? Or maybe I passed it one day or something. But
right.
But little things like that, you quickly see that I quickly saw growing up that motorsports appealed to entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I say this all the time. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, you're solving problems Monday through Friday. And I don't care who you are. You don't turn that off on Friday at 5.
Right.
And turn it back on, Monday at 7 in the morning. You're wired the way you're wired. And I think, and I truly believe that is the appeal to motorsports with a lot of entrepreneurs. They're used to solving problems. To me, racing is nothing more than competitive problem solving. That's what it is. It doesn't matter what form it is. Everybody starts off the same, and you want to, you start off the weekend tied for first, every single person. Right. And you just want to stay there. And how do you stay there? Like in pro stock, there's, we're winning and losing races by thousandths of a second. So, and not all those cars are set up the same. There's somebody favors the front half, somebody favors the back half, somebody, it's like a Rubik's Cube. There's so many different ways to get there. But
right. Well, and just to take a couple steps back, just so the fans that don't know, like, I only know Jim Truman. Didn't get into motorsports until the, I guess, early 90s. So I think Jim had already passed on at that point. But I only knew Jim Truman because I would sit and watch like Indy 500 documentaries. But so Jim Truman owned Red Roof Inn Hotels, and then also, was it True Sports or?
True Sport. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha. Which Bobby Rahal raced for, won the Indy 500, and then subsequently Jim Truman passed away of cancer.
Yep. Yeah, he actually paid. I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe he passed away a couple of days after they won the 500. Right. Like, he was there. That was one of his last, one of his last accomplishments to be a part of.
Wow. So you have this huge sports, and so a lot of people on the show have like a big racing pedigree, but because they were like, because their dad raced or their mom's raced or their family raced or whatever, like, you're in a situation where it didn't race but was in the periphery of racing. And sometimes people don't get how big the periphery of racing is. But so, tell us more about your childhood or your adolescence, and like, when did you make the shift to the racing business?
Well, you know, I
Also,
really,
I'm curious too. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm curious. Like, did you grow up Scott or Woody? Like, where did Woody come from?
oh man. um, well, it was Scott for a long, long, long time. And then I think sixth grade when I moved to Dublin, it was pretty much Woody, Woody, Woody. So, maybe it just got old enough or I got old enough and the crowd got old enough that, we started paying more attention to Ohio State and Woody Hayes at the time. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, you lucked out there. See, I didn't quite luck out because my last name was Dukes, so I
yeah,
got to be Dukey.
Dookie. Well, I tell you, I had a soccer coach that called me Scotty, and I freaking hate it. Like, hate it when somebody calls me Scotty. Like, my wife will dig every once in a while; she'll throw it out there, and but yeah, I remember an old soccer coach saying that. But yeah, motorsports, you know, early on, obviously, Jeg Jr. I became childhood friends since sixth grade. So,
Okay.
or we've been childhood friends since sixth grade. And, his older brothers bought us beer when we were in high school. So for me, that was always a different relationship and a different working environment when I started working at Jegs for me. But I think, when I was done with school, I decided to follow my father's footsteps and get into the investment investment business as far as financial planning, whether it was estate planning, insurance, 401ks, profit sharing, group health, life insurance, mutual funds, you name it. And I did that for about 5 years. And I started flying to the races with Jeg and his brothers in probably early '97 to just kind of help out and have fun. To be honest, I was there pretty much just wiping the cars down, drinking a beer, having a good time, and just meeting
Right.
people. That's what I did. So there was a point when I just got burned out on the compliance of the investment world, and just it was changing a lot, and it just really wasn't as much fun as it once was. I was starting to think, what do I really want to do? Is this really what I want to do, or am I just doing this because it's easy to do, because my dad did it and I grew up in it and had relationships in that world. But I don't know. I really don't know when I just said, it's time to do something that makes me happy. I don't know if I was mature enough at that point to actually, have a thought like that. But
Right.
but I remember we were redoing the health insurance at Jegs, and they were one of my larger clients, commercial clients. And I remember saying something to Jag Jr. a couple weeks before that, like, man, I think maybe I'm going to do something different. And, he's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know, something in racing, maybe, Bobby, I'll go work for Bobby Rahal, or go work for True Sports, or I think it was Team Rahal at the time is what they went by, with the Miller Lite days and all that.
Yeah. I
And
remember when they had their own chassis and missed the 500. I sat home and cried like a little baby.
yeah. And then I just, and even thought Columbus coach, in Columbus, Ohio, made coaches for custom coaches through the years. And I thought, man, that'd be kind of cool. In that meeting, he said, hey, what do you think about, he asked me to stick around later and said, what do you think about coming to work for us? And I'm like, working for my best friend. I don't,
Right.
we talked about it a little bit and just kind of tabled it. And then he asked again a couple weeks later, and we just made it work, and
Nice.
the only thing I asked for was just a year to figure out how to play the game. You know,
Right.
it was obvious, like through my background in insurance and financial planning, it seemed like a lot of the skills were the same to fall into like a PR role.
Mm-hmm.
And, because when I would call, let's say Eric Arneson at USA Today, I mean, I'm trying to sell him an intangible good.
Right.
I'm trying to pitch a story. I don't want credit for it. I just want to put the ingredients on the shelf so that we're part of your cake that you're making, that if our ingredients aren't on the shelf and you don't know about it, I shame on me. That's my fault. That's nobody
Right.
else's fault, So,
So I have a question about that. Like, what was your first big win, and what had you think that, like, man, yeah, I guess this is the place for me?
my first, like, I go back. It's actually like, it's funny. It's this article. I don't know if you can see right there, and it's Eric Arneson. Like, I met him in, it would have been 1998 at the banquet. He got like media person of the year from the NHRA or whatever. And he's in line with his wife, getting a drink, and I'm in line. I said, "Hey, let me get it." And got their drinks and just started talking. And Eric's like, "Man, we got to come out with something on Jeggy right out of the gate next year." He said, "Don't let me forget." And I said, "I won't."
Mm-hmm.
No, that'd be great. And that one-on-one interaction at the end of 1998, I think it was, we came right out of the gate in 99, and Eric's been a friend ever since, no matter what role he's had, whether it's been at USA Today all the way to Fox where he is now.
Mm-hmm.
And I always, relationships are what make the world go round, without a doubt. And you really got to treat people the way you want to be treated. And that was probably the thing that showed me, like, man, shit, I can do this. This is okay.
Yeah. What,
You
what were
know,
some of the what were some of the roadblocks that you faced, or some of the warnings that people gave you about going to work for essentially a pro stock team?
wow. To be honest, nobody really ever said anything negative to me. And it's probably because they understood that the bond that I had with the family. Um, you know, Driving stuff up and down the road, I've done that. It's, looking back on it, I did a lot of things that, I'm not naive enough to think that pro stock isn't everything to everybody. You know what I mean? So, in the late 90s, as Jegs is trying to build a national company and a national brand, we're out there winning as a family. So, I always kind of went with, the three tiers on making a decision. You always looked at it: family, business, and racing, in that order. So as we're winning and all that, it's great. We're able to be on, RPM Tonight, the ESPNs of the world, the USA Today, just all these publications. But I understood that I'm competing against Kenny Bernstein for
Right.
column inches at the time, and what do I do differently? Well, early on, I thought, I need to appeal to somebody's laziness. I need to do a majority of the job for them, hand it to them on a silver platter, let them change it as they see fit, let them use it as they see fit, but let
Mm-hmm.
them get the credit for
Right.
it. So, it was give people slides, if you remember those.
Yeah.
I was really badass when we had the fax transmission service, and you typed everything, and then you know the deal. You threw it in there, faxed it. Now, I mean, it was magic that you had, like, you had preset lists,
Right.
numbers
Yeah.
that went to different states and all that. So,
That was one of my specialties as an intern. For some reason, I just got it. Most of the people in the office didn't get it. They were like, "You sent all those faxes out already?" It was like, yes.
sure did, man. I'm beat. I gotta go.
Yeah. They're
Yeah,
like, we can
but
keep
that's,
this shit around.
you just, like, one of the comments that was made before that I heard when I was in the green room was, before I came on the show, was you saying, you know, the CD-ROM media kit, and that's a great example. I mean, literally, there were pre-written stories on there. There were photos. There were stats, and here you go. And it even had the Acrobat Reader software on there, so that
Oh
you had
wow.
no excuse that you threw it in there. It worked,
Wow.
and that worked very well. And that probably really kind of that single thing gave me a lot of confidence. And then the
Well,
fact when we were winning, I've got in my garage, we did winner circle pictures for each year. So in the bottom right hand corner, it's got the year, but all the winner circle pictures are in the frame. And it's neat to go back and look at those, like when I'm having a bad day or something, or just thinking through something, and they're specifically on the wall for a reason for me,
right.
as well as things that are behind me. They're things that I've done, or things that motivate me, or things that remind me that, hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, so I do have a question for you that this peaks up for me, because I mean I'm a life and a business coach, right? And some of the things that you said, they sound super easy, right? Like figure out what the people need, or know what the people need, and do their, like, don't let them, not necessarily don't let them be lazy, but do their work for them. As a life and business coach, like, I get people who come to me and they're like, this is so simple, blah blah, but then like they'll start talking and immediately it's like, wait, you're not connecting with the people. You really don't actually know what they need, like, and so you're trying to solve a problem, but you don't actually know them or know what they need. Like, can you tell me about, just for you, the process of, like, understanding the media, understanding what they need, so that you could actually give them what they needed?
well, I mean, first and foremost, you ask, you know, um, hey, what can I help you with? And every race we go to, is a local market for somebody,
Mm,
and you'll have a writer or writers or photographers or, somebody show up that they're very apprehensive to ask questions because they're the new guy in the room, or
mhm.
they cover high school sports, you know, 50 weeks a year,
Right,
you
right,
know,
right. Now they got
and
to
they got
sign the
thrown
track
into
race.
this because they're the sports guy in town.
Right.
Um, and you really just try and make those connections, one by one. You really, I don't want to say like I have a hit list, but there's a lot of times that I'll start the weekend with a piece of paper in my pocket and write some names on it and say,
Hmm.
hey, these are people I have to talk to this weekend before I leave, period. You know,
Hmm.
um, I don't, I think you make things better by asking people people are dying to give you their opinion. I give you an example, like the Jegs All-Star race, for example. When I was at Jegs and helped build that into what it is, that was successful because we asked the racers what's important to them, you know, and went out of our way after the event each year to take time and ask those 80 competitors, what are 5 things that you don't want to see change? And what are 3 things that you would like to see change?
Mm.
Um, and I feel like if you tee that up in that manner, then it doesn't turn into a complaint session.
Right.
I'm all about somebody having, not liking something, but you got to have a solution to make it better. Otherwise,
Right.
you're just noise. I think it's important when you look at a situation, whether it's with the media, whether it's with a sponsor, whether it's with a competitor, that, you need to put their hat on for a second and think about it through their eyes. Now, I'm almost, I want to say, trained in that manner, because when I was at Jegs, most of the time, we were the owner, the driver, the sponsor, the fan.
Right.
So you tried to look at each situation through each one of those glasses and try and make the best decision for everybody, which is hard to do. On the media side, I tend to prioritize on where the eyeballs are. So to me, the eyeballs are on TV. That's where the most people see our product.
Mm-hmm.
So, majority of the time, that's where I spent a lot of my time, was, sending somebody a text, calling somebody, pulling somebody aside, giving them something. That's another thing. I mean, it's so many times people forget on the media side that, you don't just send everything to everybody and expect everybody to get on board. There's there's sometimes that when I was at Jegs, that I don't want to say it was a chess game, but sometimes you have to favor certain publications every once in a while. You know what I mean? Just kind of keep the hot potato going around,
Right.
so that you don't show favoritism, because those guys those guys and gals that write for a living, take images for a living, they are just as competitive as somebody that puts on a helmet. I promise you. I used to spend time, my top 10, I could give two shits about the points. I wanted to know back in the day, all right, how did I do in Joyce Julius back in the
Oh,
day?
yeah.
And I didn't, I've never really put too much stock in the number of value in that, but I did put a lot of stock on percentage of time on coverage,
Okay.
because, that those minutes don't lie. They're minutes. Now the
Right.
value is the value, it's perceived. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, talk a little bit about you have a super interesting perspective in that you, like you said, at times where Jegs were the driver, the team owner, the sponsor, the company that also sponsored the sponsor. Like,
Yeah.
tell us about some of the integrations of that and how like actually from a racing business standpoint, like the direct correlation back to the business of Jegs, and then also some of the influence that you had on the business of Jegs.
Well, a lot of the, let's use in-car cams as an example. Okay. Like, that was always a major, major, major piece or major tool in what I consider my toolbox for Jegs.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, you have a dedicated camera. You're in the broadcast. You're paying for that. Let's just, be honest about it, but you also are guaranteed that you're going to get 30 seconds of coverage.
Right,
Remember,
right.
okay,
Yeah.
so
Well, and have kids all around the country,
yeah,
doing imitating Jegs,
yeah,
pushing the gears.
exactly. And then you're in bump ins and you're in teases and tech tips and whatever. So that ends up being a resource. That ends up being a way to make yourself different. You can go to a baseball game and, watch somebody hit a home run. Well, you might be able to relate to hitting the ball because you've had a bat and you've hit a ball, but I don't know about a home run. And that's kind of what I feel like the in-car camera does, is it puts you in the action. It
Mhm.
lets you see something, that adds to the show, that adds excitement, that adds, some adrenaline, and, we could go back, back in the day, TiVo, used TiVo. There's another. But you used to go back and you could I knew when the show started. I would go in and figure out how long into the show did they start showing the in-car cam that says jegs.com and when,
Mm-hmm.
and then go back into the office, and Ray Stagg at the time, which was our head of advertising, and him and I would talk, and I'd say, hey, I noticed that, at this time, they're showing this. I think one day I said, just out of curiosity, I just want to see what the website did. And you literally saw spikes.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like you saw movement. It's, granted, we're talking such a big number of visitors, but you saw movement,
Right.
And that was always really cool to see. And, we've all heard the, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. Well, win on Sunday, sell on Sunday for us,
Right. Yeah.
Call our 800 number, dial, check out jegs.com. That's kind of what it was. And, and kind of switch gears into, what Elite does. Racers are finicky people. They want to deal with people that understand them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to trailers or motorhomes or coaches, been there, done that. They can look at one of our guys and talk to one of our guys and know the minute that you look them in the eye that they're telling you the way it is. They want to do what's best for you, because they've learned from their mistakes with different equipment, or heard stories, or know this, or have fixed certain issues for people. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, you never know when somebody's going to make a purchasing decision. But if somehow you can be associated with the five senses, you have a better chance of somebody remembering you. Now, I know that's kind of deep sociology and psychology, but at the end of the day, that's what racing's about. That's why people remember the sponsors, because they saw the car go by fast. They smelled the burning rubber. They saw the smoke. They saw, they felt, maybe outside of taste. I mean, you can get a little nitro taste in your mouth every once in a while, or some ethanol. You maybe it's smell taste, but you get the picture. I mean, it's about filling your head with pixels, and that's the special sauce. That's the part that you cannot go to a CFO and say, I can tell you dollar for dollar what this is worth, because nobody can. And and when the economy kind of, in the mid 2000s did the dip down a little bit, it helped the internet, because the person minding the purse strings, the CFO, the accountants or whatever, were trying to figure out how to most efficiently use their money, and when they clearly saw that here's this banner ad, this is how many clicks, and here's a formula, and this is what we got to the cart, and this is how many got to the box, and got to the customer. It's hard. It's hard to go head to head against a proven equation like that when you're in the branding world. But there's guys. I'll give you a great example, like Randy from Skag. He could give two shits about how a car does on the track.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't care. He's got 1,500 dealers that he wants to entertain and wants to make a lasting impression on. It's his time for him and his execs to have one-on-one time with them, asking them about their business while they're having fun. And it's not your typical golf outing that's going to be 5 hours and there's going to be a cookout after, and that you only play with 4 people. They're playing with the whole group every round. You know what I mean? They are literally hand holding these people taking them around so that they have a great experience.
Right.
And I promise you, the word of mouth and the morale boost, it pays for itself 10 times in what he's doing.
Right.
At Norwalk, I just simply asked him, they've got a really cool kind of toolbox, a C-Tech style toolbox for a sitting area.
Right.
And I think they can sit probably, I don't know, 8-10 people, something like that, and have some people in the back and in the front. But they've got their own little area. So already his customers feel that they're different. You know what I mean? I'm a badass. This is fucking cool.
Right.
I mean, that's and to see the CEO of an owner of the company handhold and walk these people around to make sure that they have a good time. Our sport needs more people like that. Every sport needs more people like that.
Yeah.
It's that's how you entertain people, and that's how he gets back, where he sees his sales increases is afterwards when that salesman is at that dealer where they've got Toro on one side, Skag over here, John Deere, and whoever else, and they walk in and they naturally steer people over to the they had a great time.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, our sport has 2 lanes. There's 2 cameramen there. By God, if you're a PR person, you better know everything about those camera guys and, take the time to go up and talk to them, say hey to them, ask them how their family's doing. I promise you, not this isn't why I do that, but I promise you they spend more time with the camera on your car.
Right.
If you're not a dick.
Right.
Not to be that blunt, but I've seen people push people out of the way. We don't push people out of the way. We open the door so that they can get in there and see more.
Yeah.
You don't want to be an obstacle for anybody with a camera,
Well, and I love all the things that you're talking about, because I also love the authenticity that you're talking about it through. It's like, look, don't be nice to people so that you can sell them something in the future. Like, be nice to people to be nice to them, and then they'll obviously do that. One of your roles as Jegs, at least from an outsider standpoint, was also as like kind of gatekeeper. So it was like, well, people wanted Jegs to be involved in things or something like that. It was like, well, go through Woody. And so that was one of my experiences. I was the track manager at Gateway in the early 2000s, and super young, super sort of didn't know what I was doing, but at the same time, like, really knew what I was doing. But also, track management, you don't know what you're doing. You're sort of inventing it along the way. But if you're at a track, like it's one of the huge opportunities is Jegs or Summit, and you look at both of them as you should have at least one of them.
Pepsi or Coke. It's Wendy's or McDonald's.
Yeah. So on the Jeg side, you were the gatekeeper on the Jeg side. Can you tell just some, from a business side? So a lot of people in the business are selling to people like Jegs, or selling to people like Summit or whatever. What works to get past, not even past a gatekeeper, but like, as you're talking about, like authentically building relationships and stuff like that, what are some things that you've seen that worked, and what are some things that you've seen that don't work? And if me and Gateway is an example of something that didn't work, like, please, for sure, use it as an example. This is a learning experience for everyone.
Well, every situation's different. I will tell you this. I have seen an enormous amount of proposals through the years, and some of the best ones I've seen have come from like a little kid with the go-kart. You know what I mean? Or just somebody that's just getting started. No, only because of the approach, I would say, like, when we did things with facilities, signage was always something that was important to us because it was very easy to manage. And as the years progress, technology changes, and obviously other things become more important. But really every situation's different. You know, the getting a gold, silver, and platinum, or gold, silver, and bronze type of proposal. You know, I've been there, done that. And I get where the person's coming from, but at the end of the day, you still got to have that in. You still got to have somebody that's going to give you the time to tell your story.
Mhm.
Now, I gave plenty of people opportunity to tell a story, even if I knew I was going to say no, just because I would learn something.
Mm.
I would see something that I liked, see something that I might want to emulate with our own stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all about it's about relationships, and it's about being a partner, a real partner. Like that's a fairly overused word. There's reasons why. You look at you take Bob Glidden, take Warren Johnson, for example. Those are guys that were very, very, very good on track.
Mm-hmm.
They were terrible off track to execs, But I mean, now granted, and you could clearly see if you go back in time, when the performance was there, people overlook things.
Right,
When the
right, right.
performance goes away, now you're a target. And I think, you just got to remember that when somebody writes you a check for something, you want to over deliver for them. It's same whether, the only deals that work out are win, win, win. They got to win for everybody.
Right.
And they have to win for the side of the seller, the buyer, and the customer. Facilities are hard, but things that make a difference is getting involved with the emotion, be involved with the winner circle, ask for, like, I'll give you, at Bowling Green, we did a really cool thing. So we sponsored the win light sign, nothing out of the ordinary, but no matter what race is held there, when I was in charge and you won a race out of the Jegs lane, you got a separate hat that said you won out of the Jegs lane at Bowling Green. And I had them take a picture with the hat on that's already there, and a picture with an inflatable, a blown up photo catalog, and would tag it "Win with Jegs." That's simple. But I wanted, you talk about it going both ways. I needed some content to help us overall, and I needed content to show something tangible on why we were spending the money on this win light stuff.
Right.
Whereas like in the past, in the late 90s, early 2000s, you just pen a check for that sign and be over it, and not really ask for anything. Well, now let's be a partner. I got no problem doing that sign, but I need this, and this.
Right. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the transition. Well, actually, before we go to the transition, let's still keep it on Jegs for a sec. You talked about some of those key learnings that you learned as a kid, and the Jack Nicklaus and the Roger Penske influence and the Jim Truman influence. What like how much of an influence did that have on you with some of the things that you did at Jegs or yeah?
I would say a lot. Also, Jeg Senior was a huge influence. Working with him was awesome. I mean, he would challenge you and ask you questions. A lot of times when he asked you the question, he already knew the answer. So you knew very quickly. He used to say something to the boys that I never really understood until years ago, when he said, I will always be 30 years older than you. You will always look at things different than me, and I never really kind of got that. And then now that, I've got kids that are 16 to 27, it's like, I get it.
I get
You know, I
it.
totally get it.
Yeah.
But like in that same breath, you know, like back in the day, you know, TJ, you know, Troy Jr. and Megan would come into a meeting, and we, you know, they would get asked, "Hey, who have you been buying from lately? Like what websites? Well, what works? What do you like? What do you not like?" Well, you know, we're not, our era at that point was not very savvy. So you ask the kids who are the tech savvy guys, and you
Right.
start to put a lot more stock into the way they look at things once you understand why they look at it a certain way. You know, there's a lot to be said on challenging somebody. You don't, I, you know, you can disagree with somebody on their thoughts, but there's always something to be learned. You know, if you really just listen. You know,
Yeah.
um, you know, I'm fortunate to be in a lot of meetings and provide input to a lot of things, but listen way more than I provide input.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's talk about the transition from Jegs to Elite Motorsports, Elite Performance, the whole Elite family. First, how did that go, and then what has it turned into?
Well, it actually went great. Ironically, Richard was the first person I called when I rolled out of 101 Jegs when I resigned, and I mean it was as simple as, all right, well, you're coming here. Oh, it was like, really? You did what? Well, he's like, well, fuck, you're coming here.
Richard impersonation.
Yeah, I'm not as good as now. Troy Jr. is the impersonator. I'm telling you, if you ever get
Okay.
the chance, oh, he's masterful. It is
Our producer, Gracie
it's
Bernatender,
unbelievable.
he's
Just
got to
don't
give
put a
it.
camera in his face because he'll clam up. But he's one of the funniest people. Period. I mean, he had us rolling over the weekend when it was raining. Just like I remember being a little kid doing imitations and stuff. But I don't know, where were we? Sorry.
Well, and then what has it morphed into, and
Oh,
sort of what's the business lesson for the
um,
audience
you
and
know, I
into?
would say I understand family businesses and how they work, and they are extremely unique. You know, um, and that comes from my time working at Jags. That comes from understanding the boundaries of my wife's family business. You know, I've always, if somebody asks something, I'll mention a comment or give a thought, but that's theirs.
Hmm.
So, um, but like I said, family businesses are unique. Elite is definitely a family business. There there is a feeling that I got that I've had twice. And it's, when we had two pro stock cars and two pro stock trucks at Jegs, and it was all in as a family. Um, that's definitely the same feeling it is at Elite.
Hmm.
And I have a very, very, very special bond with Richard, just like I do with Jag. Richard's primarily comes, he's got a little asterisk in my heart. When my wife, we had a oil fire in the kitchen, and I was in Houston, you know, within 2.5 hours of getting that call, I'm on his plane, and I'm back at Canton, Ohio, on the burn unit at Akron Children's with my wife and one of my daughters. So, um, there's something very special about the group at Elite. That situation specifically, it was pretty powerful, and makes you want to work harder for somebody, makes you want to work stronger for somebody. When they believe in you, believe in your family. We all take vacations together with our families, believe it or not.
Hmm.
Um, but when I walked into that trailer after getting that call, after I think we won second round or first, whatever it was. I know it was during the Dodge era because it was a headache, but But we were in Houston, and I remember walking in. I was late to a closed door meeting in one trailer, and walked in. And I said, "Hey, guys, I got to go. I got to go now." And I said that to Jeg, and he's like, "What's up?" And I just told everybody. And in that room, I said, "Hey, my wife and daughters have been burned. We have a fire. They're going to the hospital. I don't really know anything." And Mark Stockseth, who's been a long time supporter of the program at Elite and friend, he said, "I'll have a jet here for you in a half hour that takes you where you need to be." I will never forget those words. And then, Richard, of course, "Fuck that, Brett's here. He'll take you now." And then Jag feels bad because their plane wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's at that time, I had actually been offered a position at the NHRA, and actually got a call Monday from one of the execs that said, "Hey, what are you thinking?" Da da da. And I said, "I can't do it.
Yeah.
I just can't do it, and I'm not going to do it, and this is why." So I have a lot of loyalty, loyalty and allegiance to Jeg Jr. and Richard Freeman both. So.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, just to summarize what I heard too is like be the type of person that have friends that are disappointed when they can't help you out fast enough, but also be the person that can have friends that people want to help you, or like feel bad for not being able to help you out fast enough. So no, that's a super powerful it's a super powerful story, and it's so funny how the show has come about, where it's like, well, is this going to be just like a business show where you just come on and like have a scrolling list of just business topics? And it's like, no, I think we're going to just talk about like the behind the scenes stuff that really actually pushes the needle, if that's a thing. And I think things like that are things that aren't taught in, actually, they're not taught in school. It's not taught in business school. It's
no. I mean, I honestly, my dad definitely instilled a work ethic in me, without a doubt. I mean, I joke, my brother would spend 45 minutes in the bathroom once I started mowing the grass. He's supposed to be outside helping, but
mm-hmm.
But I've got a younger brother, 2 younger sisters. My mom's doing well, so life is good.
Nice.
And on a family side, when I was at Jegs, it was all family. So when my father-in-law passed away, which is how my wife and I met. Actually, he sponsored the car that Mark Osborne raced against Jeg in his first win in Houston. So that's actually how my wife and I met. So she, the business side of it, she gets what I do. My kids get what I do because they always have. Now we've raised my wife's adopted brother, Dion, who's 27. He went to go work for Drag Illustrated. Kind of a funny story. He gets done with school. First off, he's scared of noise, doesn't like loud noises. He gets done with school. He goes to work at Lululemon, doesn't know what he wants to do. So I took him to the Elton John concert. A friend of mine is the lighting guy. So we're in the lighting booth and having some beers. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, "What do you want to do?" And he's like, I said, "Do you really want to work at Lululemon the rest of your life? I mean, if you do, that's cool. I'm just asking. I'm not being a dick, just asking." And he's like, "I want to do what you do." And I'm like, "Nah, no, you don't. You may think you do, but and I remember I told him then, I said, let me think about this for a little bit. But what you really need to do is you need to get a skill set, and you need to, if you like the media, you like all that, you figure out what you like." Well, he latched on to video, like self-taught, and would take lessons on the internet. And I mean, to the point now that he's working for Alex Laughlin doing all of his YouTube stuff and loving it. And he loves the fact that he doesn't have to travel the way that he did, which which I told him from the very beginning, you got to figure out if you like traveling.
If you like it, right. And if your body
not
likes
not that if you can put up with it, that you like it,
right.
you know.
Well,
And he
put
figured
up.
out that he
I mean,
didn't.
we talked about it earlier too. Putting up with it is a thing too. It's like
It is.
I don't know that my body actually can.
It is, and you know, I mean, all of us in this industry, I would say everybody's all in, you know. So, you know, we all miss things on the weekend that somebody in a so-called regular life or job has, whatever that is. But you know, I don't know any different than working 7 days a week and being wired the way I am. I just don't, you know. My wife jokes and says, you know, when you retire, what are you going to do? You know,
Go to the racetrack.
yeah, says you better find somebody to mentor. I said, that's no
Right.
problem. But, you know, I find great joy in doing things around the house that are immediate gratification, you know, whether it's mowing the grass or I love cleaning cars. If I get stuck on a project and I can't think through something, I mean, I'm out in the garage cleaning my car, you know, and just trying to think through things, you know.
Yeah.
One thing I would tell people is, you know, really always, you have thoughts come up in your mind all the time. We're all busy people. It is so easy to forget about a great idea. So keep a notepad next to you, you know, whether it's in the car, just put them everywhere so that you just write something. It takes 2 seconds, and I promise you, not all the ideas are good, but you can't try them if you don't remember them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, tell us a little bit. This will be the last question of your journey, and then we'll get into the last questions, which are put up your dukes. But tell us just about the breadth of Elite Motorsports, Elite Performance, like all the different things that you're currently doing.
Well, right now, what's taking up a lot of time is working on the pro event that we're going to have in February. I'm on the pro board and actually on the committee for the event as well. So that's taken up a lot of time, a lot of fun time. That's been super productive and just super rewarding on a number of fronts. But you know, I'm already working on the U.S. Nationals. You know, I mean, that's working on ideas. You know, Erica's getting ready. She's got 2 more wins. She's the all-time winningest female in racing. So, you know, already starting to kind of work on that, develop a game plan for that since we're obviously getting closer. We've expanded. You know, we added a new hire to the sales team at Elite, sales and customer service team. For the motorhome business, motorhome and trailer business. That's big. We've been working on some kind of innovative point of purchase displays in the cultivation space for Elite cultivation, almost like a high end kind of sunglass case that's kind of like what Oakley would have at a store, just to show the product, show who we are more than anything, you know. And it's nice to have the technology of Bluetooth that you can go get like a digital picture frame and change this thing on the fly, and you know, but that's our way to show people what Elite is, you know, to show them the racing, that show them the sexy side of the racing, show them the people at Elite Cultivation, show them the process, show them this, you know. It's you got to sell your brand and who you are. The business, Patterson Elite is doing very well on the sportsman side. Our professional engine building business, Elite Performance, is always just on kill. They've had some pretty neat projects that they've been working on outside of drag racing. Some offshore stuff that is just I'm baffled by the size of things, like when you see stuff, but you know, at the same time, I'm baffled by the simplicity of it.
Right.
But you know, really everything's plugging along really good. You know, the lot at Elite Motorsports just turns over all the time. We've got some new trailers that we've got coming. We've got one that's just about done. A pop-up experience for Corral Boots and Quadra that will be a 56-foot trailer that the side folds all the way down, and this will serve as a mobile retail location.
Oh, no way.
Where we will you will have everything drop shipped to you, so you'll be sized for boots right there. Get the right size, see, try it on, whatever, but then to have it sent to you. You know, we're going to bring that we'll probably start that next year, but we're going to bring it to some events this year. You know, that'll have the ability to go to, you know, the American Music Awards, Country Music Awards, some big rodeos, and really just major events. So really looking forward to that. That's been a cool project. You know, really my role is very, very, very similar. Believe it or not, it's nice to be a resource. And, you know, Richard and I sometimes will go a couple hours without talking, or a couple days, or a couple weeks. You know, it just kind of depends on what's going on. But you know, really that, you know, we've really stepped up our program on delivering things to our sponsors this year for them to use, whether it's rights-free images, whether it's videos that they need, whatever. And really just trying to embrace the whole team approach to our vehicles, so that, you know, we have 9 Pro Stock cars under our umbrella, and, you know, we want to make sure that you're a partner of our entire program, you know. Right. So we want you to be on all the cars, so that 9 times out of 10 you got somebody winning, you know. Right, somebody doing well. You know, that, and just trying to come up with what's next, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll have some of those. I've got a yellow notepad that's specifically for new ideas, and a lot of times I'll just kind of click off the phone, grab a beer or something, and then kind of just chill in the backyard and
just write.
Just whatever comes to my mind, just think stuff, you know. And you know, that's, luckily we've got a really great group of people, whether they're at the racetrack or away from the racetrack, you know. I mean, and Sally, she somehow keeps us all in line. So, so when I get a call from her, I know, I'm like, this is a financial question for sure, you know. So, but yeah, she keeps us in line. She's been really a major help, you know. We just finished a major addition on the race shop that allows us to have, you know, all 6 rigs inside, actually 7 rigs inside, to where everything's just right there, you know. And that's something that we learned very quick at Jegs, and by when we built the race shop that Coughlin Brothers has been in for a number of years, since 2000. You know, we toured NASCAR shops at the time, and IndyCar shops, and then we looked at our sport and thought, you know, you gotta have the toolbox.
Right.
The toolbox on wheels is your toolbox everywhere, you know.
Right.
And so we've always had that approach, and having everything inside is awesome. The guys, I've heard some funny stories. I have yet to actually go down to the shop and see it, since it's been completed, but I've heard the guys say that, like, they could be on one side and literally have now figured out how bad that their vision is, because they can't see the other side. So,
oh wow. That's awesome. That's big.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next segment, which is the last segment. It's called Put Up Your Dukes, and it's about 12 questions. Well, we have 12 rounds or 13 rounds, but it's super quick questions. We just want, first thing that pops up to your head, no longer than a minute of for each.
Okay.
Cool deal? Yeah.
Yep.
And so some of these questions you could either from your perspective or from the perspective of the industry.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So what is the strength of the industry?
People. The strength of the relationship is people and passion.
How about the weakness?
Probably the same. Yeah. No, the weakness is the ego and emotion, actually. That's the weakness. People and passion is the plus, and ego and emotion is typically the negative. And when I say emotion, obviously emotion in a positive way is good, but taking emotion out of decisions is what you need to do to make the right one. And that's hard.
That is hard. Biggest opportunity?
TV and streaming platform, I believe. Just for we are all seeing this industry change as fast as technology is moving. But at the end of the day, I'd say you got to have the right outlet for the content, and everybody wants to absorb sports differently. So you need to be able to appeal to everybody.
Biggest threat?
Cost. Yeah, that's the biggest threat. As competition, we all know things. You'll spend what you can to have an advantage. You'd spend even more if you could lock it in for a set period of time. Trust me.
Right. If you can figure that part out, yeah. Most overrated. And not necessarily person or thing, just most overrated part of either your life or the industry.
Travel.
Most underrated.
Travel. Most underrated. I'd say most underrated is the fellowship with everybody. It's, you can have a bad day and you show up at the racetrack and your friends will put a smile on your face every time, for sure.
Yeah. Biggest mental hurdle?
AP style.
It's actually most people listening probably don't even know what that means.
No, that's that I don't know. That's not my gig. That's where I sound.
So it's a type of writing style, yeah.
Yeah. Type of writing style. I'm more the creative guy. Somebody else has got to fill in the X's and O's.
Final 3 questions. One, what's the last thing here just that you have to say to the generation before you? You talked about the Penske's, the Nicklases, the Trumans, Ray Halls, Jegs Seniors. What do you have to say to those guys?
Thank you. Thank you for being great examples and now from my seat, now my job is to be a good steward of the sport, just like they have been, and that's really where my biggest motivation is right now. And that's probably why I'm most excited about what we're doing with Pro, is that, you've got a very strong group of people, lots of different agendas, but the common goal is we're all passionate about the sport, and we all want to be good stewards of the sport and pass it on so that, there can be another Woody, or there can be another Jason Line, or there can be another John Force, or there can be another Jeg Coughlin. I am reminded of it every day I'm around Troy Coughlin Jr. just because of, he was that little kid that wore me out on a scooter that wanted to go for a cub ride at the racetrack and was pissed that he couldn't go on the starting line, but had to watch from the fence, but all that fence did was make his passion greater for the sport.
Yeah. What do you have to say to the younger generation, the people coming up behind us?
And just be yourself. Be yourself and be your brand. Exceed people's expectations. Do what you say you're going to do. If you do what you say you're going to do, you're already doing more than 95% of the people.
Yeah. And how about to your peers?
Man, to my peers. We have a lot of fun together. A lot of, Elon and I are probably the two closest in comparison, I guess. Elon Warner, just because the two of us used to take so much abuse out of how much our drivers got in exposure compared to everybody else. So, I mean, there's definitely a special bond there, but, I think it's important to, at this, I'm 53, I'm not going any place, hopefully, in life soon, but, I think it's good to be a good mentor and there's a lot of times that some of the new guys that come in the industry will hear stories about some of us older guys, and eventually they'll muster up the nerve to approach you and say something. But those are always really cool conversations, and there's a lot of really talented people that have the passion and are getting the platform. So and the platform just comes with time.
Yeah, got it. Well, that's the end of our questions. So I just it's awesome spending the time to get to know you a lot better, and I'm hopefully that's the experience of the people watching, along with all the gems of knowledge that you got. So thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Of course.
When are you coming to a race soon?
Say that again.
When are you coming to a race?
I'll be at a SRO sports car. Well, this will probably air by that time, but I'll be at an SRO sports car race, God willing, this weekend in Elkhart Lake. But nice. After hearing you talk about the U.S. Nationals, it sounds like I'm going to have to be there.
It's a good one to go to.
Yeah.
It's always fun. I love going to Indy. I always go to Long's Bakery, which they have killer donuts. If anybody's in Indy, unbelievable. It's not the best area of town. Don't be alarmed. There's police that are watching, but the donuts are well worth it. And obviously the shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's and always a cocktail at Rick's Boatyard.
All right, sounds good. Well, I'll call you. I will. Let's just put it on the books. I'll be at Indy unless I have a conflict with some other event. But thank you very much for coming. Want to thank our sponsors for the show. Obviously, it's the Drag Illustrated racing business. So Drag Illustrated, along with Racers Club, who I don't see the Racers Club. Oh, there it is. It's behind my live symbol. Racers Club also. Do you have any Racers Club apparel yet?
Not yet, but I've seen it. I need to do that. And I saw Jason Johnson, a picture of him, and from that, I was like, man, I got to do that.
Yeah. Everyone's doing it.
He's a great.
Final thank you just to our producer, JT Murder Tundra Hudson, who is doing this just after being on his trip in Mexico. So listen, guys, love you. Definitely subscribe and come back next week where we'll have another episode and another guest. Love you all. Take care.